I am recording for reading because I did a video on it and I talked about it, so I don't know. I just kind of want to read this book too, but in a fun way. Um, and this feels like a fun way, so I'll try it. Uh, I am reading The Devil in Massachusetts, by Marion L. Sarkey. Modern Inquiry into the Salem Witch Trials. On the back, it says history. The reign of terror that swept Salem Village in 1962 is still the most celebrated of all the witch hunts. It was a tragedy which underlined as sharply as any event in history the power of self-righteousness, fantasy, and fear to turn decent people into fanatical prosecutors. And let me tell you something, in this book, they are. They are, man. Um, the accused were diverse personalities, a well-respected grandmother, and an honest, skeptical farmer, as well as a pipe-smoking female tramp. I do want to also say, in the middle of reading the back of this book, that I have a very not so nice cough because of irritation from hemp. So, because I'm trying to use hemp for help my pain as well. Um, so I will be pausing in some areas and I don't know, um, not muting my mic. There we go. I'll be muting my mic if I really need to cough and I can't hold it back anymore. Like right now. Okay. Uh, Going back to the back of the book text. Uh, One by one, they were sent to the gallows by a pack of unbalanced young girls and a stiff-necked little Puritan community inflamed by the girls' testimony. Born in the state that once uh, continuated these atrocities, Marion L. Starkey first published her deeply moving The Devil in Massachusetts in 1949, an authentic history narrative that takes its dialogue from actual trial records but applies modern psychiatric knowledge to the witchcraft hysteria. At the same time, the author's uh, unerring sense, no, unerring sense of drama succeeds in creating the pity and the terror to so necessary to an understanding of man's capacity for evil and for suffering. Uh, that's a very good summary of what goes on in this book. And if you're into psychology, um, it's a good read for what goes on in here. I mean, it's wild, and I'm only on chapter 5. Um, like last time I stopped reading, it was at chapter 5. So I'm going to do the best I can. I'm just going to keep reading from where I stopped off at. Okay. Now that the witches have been detected and taken, most of Salem would gladly have been excused from hearing any more about the matter. Sap was rising in the sugar bush, the fields were thawing and drying out in the intermittent sun. It was time that sensible people turned their attention from the show which the devil had brought to town and got down to the real business of the year, to plowing and planting. Besides, there were some who, from the first, had had no patience with the notion of a witch hunt. Um, the Pierce, Miss Paris, was not one of these, but she did protest successfully as against making any further use of her little girl as a kind of spiritual bloodhound. Younger than the other girls, Betty their their knack for coming out of possession, uh, refreshed and hale. On the contrary, she had fallen into the truly uh, piteous state, weeping, talking wildly, accusing herself as much as Tituba, almost as if the child supposed herself to be one of the witches. According to the mother, prevailed on her husband to send the child out of reach of contagion. That's another thing too. They thought that this thing was like a sickness that spread like a cold or something. Um, and people that were like that were basically put in jail. They were like quarantined. Um, and it's basically the same thing as them being arrested and put in jail. Um, because they couldn't do anything and they couldn't work. Um, and the way it sounds, I don't know if their bills got paid like that or not. Okay. Um, where did I stop at? Okay. According to the mother, prevailed on her husband to send the children out of reach of contagion to Salem town, to the home of Stephen Sewall, brother of Samuel. Here removed from the thrilling events of the village, from the fatal solici- solicitude of neighbors who dropped by in hourly to question the girls and watch them for symptoms of possession, and above all from her companions in affliction. Betty slowly began to recover. Her new guardians were kind, they were prayerful, and for all that they were enormously impressed by her gifts, they were strict. Under their care, Betty reverted little by little to the drop to the drape of life of an ordinary girl. It was duller that way, but it was safer. If Miss Pear's desire to protect her child was understandable, there were others whose aloofness from the whole affair did not always be so innocently accounted for. There were actually people who seemed not to believe in witches, or at least if they did, not go to such uh, as, uh, atheistic lengths. They scouted the possibility that any such uh, chimeras were indigenous to plain workday Salem village. They proposed less mystical uh, ex- explanations for the afflictions of the girls. Even close connection of the girls shared this skepticism. That's another thing too. A lot of people thought that they were faking it. Um, and it was a Puritan push to uh, our Puritan political push to try and take out paganism in the community, uh, because they didn't like them. Even though they were the ones that left from Europe to come to America to have be had yeah to uh, be in their religion in peace and to worship in peace, and it caused so much problems for um, the ones that were not Puritans that lived around them. Okay, let's see. Uh, Even close connections of the girls shared a skepticism. It was rumored that when Joseph Putnam, uh, or Putnam, yeah, Joseph Putnam, youngest brother of Sergeant Thomas, heard that the latter's daughter was beginning to prophesy and accuse. He went to the girl's mother. If you dare to touch with your foul lives anyone belonging to my husband, you shall answer for it. He was reported to have said it was as if the man confounded the scared revelation of spectacle evidence with common gossip. Bitch witches was the word old George Jacobs had for the afflicted girls, one of whom was his own maidservant, Sarah Churchill. John Proctor, who had the prophesying Mary Warren on his hands, was reporting that he had that he had cured her fits of plummeting uh, her down, her fits by pummeling her down at her at her spinning wheel and promising her a thrashing if she stared from it in it or out of possession. It irritated him that he had thus cured her. Uh, sure. The magistrates had sent over the had sent the girl over his protest to testify in court, where the proctor uh, drearily remake drearily remarked, she must have her fits, forsooth. Even those props of the village, church, deacon, uh, Ingerscroll, his wife, and his 30-year spinster daughter, Sarah, had some misgivings that the ethics of the witch misgivings about the ethics of the witch hunting. Their ordinary being the community center, they were in a position to see and hear nearly everything that went on. When John Indian was not underfoot, it was one of the girls, little Abigail, the uh, particular, now asked nothing better of a life than to escape from their personage, to perform for whoever happened to be in the ordinary, especially if they were men, although the uh, Ingersolls were unfailingly oh my god, this page will not open. Oh. Unfailingly gentle with so young a child, they kept a sharp eye on the older members of the sorority and did not hesitate to reprove them when they irresponsibly uh, ban- bandit response. Is that right? Yeah, bandit respected names. The girls responded meekly. One of them, in a latter crisis, was to find that Sarah uh, Ingersoll was the only person she dared confide in. Out of the farmlands not far from the home of the Proctors lived Martha Corey, who exposed her first view of demonic possession, simply threw her head back and laughed. Such levity gave offense and gave more when it was learned that Martha had tried to restrain her husband Gillis from going down with the rest of the village to watch the ex- examinations. Uh, this Gillis was even at 80 a great, powerful brute of a man, slow of comprehension but quick of temper, and so born to trouble uh, as the sparks fly upward. His life had been punctured by lawsuits and worse, so Martha had tried to keep him home. When words failed to dissuade him, she used her wits. She took the saddle from his horse and hid it. But as she wearily commented later, he went for all that. These people, and a great many whose motives were above all suspicion, would have thanked God when Tituba's examination finally ended on 5 March, if that were the end of the witchcraft, that it could not be. However, thinking every person was uneasily aware, Tituba's testimony had put Hathron in the position of a district attorney who, supposing that he has closed a case with the apprehension of certain malefactors, discovers that the latter are unimportant representatives of a powerful gang still at large and unidentified. Though the magistrates no longer held court for space, everyone knew that they were by no means idle. They were confining with no yes in Paris, and the afflicted girls. Also, no yes is spelled exactly how it sounds, and it is this. I think he's a father or preacher. Uh, um, what does it say? Then the magistrates no longer held court for space. Everyone knew that they were by no means idle. They were conferring with no yes in Paris and the afflicted girl. So no yes is like I'm trying to think of, he's basically like kind of like the pastor of the church. And he likes to maintain like strict religious order on all the citizens, and they're forced to live that life um, because he holds so much power uh, for who he is. Um, uh, who afflicted, uh, who afflicts thee? They were again asking, and now with special urgency, what tall man of Boston hath appeared? Sorry. What tall man of Boston hath appeared to thee? But the girls, though distressed at intervals, were dumb, or at least inarticulate, especially on the subject of the tall man of Boston. Few of them had been so far afield. Tituba was far more of a cosmopolite than they, and even the elder Anne Putnam was little versed in Boston gossip. Their silence was baffling to the magistrates. The existence of a wizard in Boston was the most disturbing aspect of the case. At any cost, he must be found and brought to justice, where he of high and low disagree, and the ruining him and running him down. They had only these poor girls to aid them. Friday, 11 March, was observed in Salem village as a day of fasting and prayer. Again, the ministers of the North Shore came down to consult with Paris. and to prey with his distressed and probably also disturbed flock. I mean, honestly, like, how much does it like affect people um to see to actively like go and see another person be killed? Um like, how much would that actually like, because like watching other humans die has got to be a stressful event. I don't know. I've never, tried to do that, but it's like, how much uh were they getting like a high from being able to put these people to death because they thought that they were wrong? And if they were, then how much, like, how distorted was their reality from that high that they got, even though it's like, uh, what the fuck? It's very bad. It's so bad and like so disgusting. Uh, and so mightily they wrestled with the angel of the Lord, and that the eyes of one of the girls were again open to the invisible world, and Putnam saw and named another witch, and people gasped at the name. It was, to everyone's disappointment, not a tall man of Boston, but a local woman, and this time not a tramp or slave, but a respectable Marthon, a member of the congregation in good standing and a tireless attendant of meeting. It was in fact Martha Corey. Uh, the natural enemies of the feminine teenagers were, as has been reported, the older Martins and the Dowaggers. I guess that's how you say that name? Dowaggers. Many of these were stalwart countrymen, used to lifting heavy loads and planting their big feet in muck, to assisting in the birthing of cows and the slaughter of pigs. Their buttocks were broad and their hands were coarse, and since they live close to the source of life, so on occasion it was their speech, the latter day uh, cari- caricature, the latter day caricature of your meaningly mouthed Puritan, had not yet been invited. Hold on, I'm gonna look up this word. I don't know what this word is. I'm trying to see what this word means. Um, a picture, description, or imitation of a person which certain striking characteristics uh, are exaggerated in order to create a comic or grotesque effect. Uh, so So sarcasm, basically. Okay. There was nothing at all Victorian. There was nothing at all Victorian about the country women. Salem village, young girls still on the threshold of biological experience. That these uh, matrons knew so lustily and well, or else it seems probable from the latter record of some of them getting figuratively and sinfully what their elders enjoyed lawfully, shrank from the pitiless, realistic appraisal in the eyes of the latter. Uh, she'll be over. She'll be over it when she takes to wearing clouts. Get her a man, and the wench will settle down. Wow. Such comments were an intolerable invasion of the privacy of the very young. One is never more delicately an individual than in the teens, or more resentful of crude generalizations that ignore the precious individuality. Um, yeah, this sounds very familiar. Um, Martha Corey was just such a country woman, and she was to boot a stout professor of the faith, though it was only a year since she had been received into the village congregation from her former communion in Salem town. She was already a, a personage, um, but not too popular a personage. Opinionated, outspoken, Martha Corey had the misfortune of being always right, and no one ever forgives that. In this crisis, however, she had at least put herself in the wrong. Her skepticism about the whole course of the witchcraft was said to border downright heresy. Neighbors had been muttering about her already, and when Anne, in a vision, clearly identified her as a witch, they said, "I told you so." Nevertheless, as an old professor and a constant attendant at meeting, Martha Coy had been given special consideration. I do kind of have a question though. Like, okay, so I know that a lot of them were automatically accused of being a witch for disagreeing with someone of I don't know, prestige at the time, because Puritans were kind of regarded as upper class citizens or royalty, um, and they bullied people, uh, and so they could, I don't know, try to stay on top. Um, but it's like she had, where's it? Yeah, she was outspoken and opinionated. Um, and I guess she told things as they were, calling a spade in a sense. And when things are bad and you just call them out like they are, people do not like that at all. Um, they like it uh, when things are bad, you know, you sprinkle some sugar on it. And I guess this person did not do that. Um, so her skepticism about the whole course of the witchcraft was said to be a downright heresy. Um, and I guess her skepticism about the whole course of the witchcraft, uh, I, I'm guessing that it's like, um, that she didn't consider these people to be uh, witches, but maybe she considered them to be regular people, or maybe she considered, um, you know, that it's not witchcraft, it's these people faking it because they want everyone to be in their religion. So they're accusing others that do not think like them, and trying to get them killed because it's easier for them to do that since they are currently in power. Um, so I don't know. It's like when I read stuff like this, it's just it's like it's like a way to basically torture people. Um, torture people uh, religiously and politically, but it's not like a judgment. It's just, you know, we don't like what you said, so you should die. Or, mm, you're speaking against us, so you're obviously not part of what we want the town to be about. So we're just gonna kill you. Um, it's a very I don't I don't want to say it's like it's a very bigoted place to live for, I guess, opinions. Um, because if it says, I don't know, it's weird because it says that also she is accepted to the church, um, after she came from somewhere else. So I don't know. Do they have like a story for her, or did she just say like, "No, I never had anything to do with uh, Christianity or whatever"? um, um, and they had to accept her into the church, so they had to teach her their ways. And then after she did all of that and just refused to take part of disgusting behavior, the best thing that they can do is say, uh, you're a witch, so you should die. Um, and it seems like that she was already onto them, uh, because she thought that the witchcraft trials, or the whole course of the witchcraft, uh, was said to border on downright heresy. Only because she was a skeptic of it, um, which means that their narrative for what's going on can't be right. Um, where did I stop at? Okay. Neighbors have been muttering about her already. When Anne, in a vision, clearly identified her as a witch. They said, "I told you so." So almost like from the beginning, uh, they plan to do this to whoever does not go their way. Nevertheless, as an old professor and a constant attendant at meeting, Martha Coy had to be given special consideration. According to the afternoon following the day of fasting, Edward Putnam and Ezekiel Cheever uh, set out to have a private word with her. Before they did so, they took a precaution. They asked Anne to take a good look at Martha's spectral shape, and tell them what she had on this being in an interest of correct identification, but not for nothing had Anne been Tituba's disciple. Her tranced eyes stared into nowhere. Then she shook her head. "I'm blind now, I cannot see." Anne explained that while Martha, perfectly aware that she was about to be interviewed and for what purpose had cast the spell on her, they found Martha alone in the kitchen. She looked up at them from her spinning wheel and smiled. So she's just hanging there. Uh, because they already thought that she was a witch before, obviously, because they attached her to a wheel. Um, to try and stop what they thought uh, were possessions. "I'm blind now, I cannot see," and explained that uh, while Martha, perfectly aware that she was about to be interviewed and for what purpose had cast her spell on her, they found, because she said she couldn't see, they found Martha alone in the kitchen. She had looked up at them from her spinning wheel and smiled. "I know what you have come for," she said, and there was in her tone a smile, that note of mockery uh, that had got her disliked. Uh, I know what you come here for. Uh, so this is stuff that's like gotten her disliked. Um, you come to talk about me being a witch. Martha had always had an annoying trick of taking the words out of one's mouth. Her visitors, who, whatever their suspicions, had come only anxious to be fair, to warn her and talk things over with her reasonably, wished that this once Martha could have resisted that temptation. After that, Anna told them such a remark was disturbingly like clairvoyancy. But in the next breath, Martha incriminated herself beyond redemption. Did she tell you what the clothes I have on? Her visitors could only look at her. Well, did she tell you? Insisted Martha. Crudely, they admitted to the details of their conversation with Anne, confronted with their damning implication. Surely an innocent woman would have been stricken, but Martha actually laughed and then sat smiling at them as if they reported later she had showed us a pretty trick, but had not, however, come to crack jokes with Martha. They brought up their business sternly. They pointed out that to her that dishonor would come upon the church if any one of its members were proved a witch. Martha became serious too. She had her a belly full of loose talk going on about her, she said, of being put on by malicious gossip. What did they, as fellow professors of the faith, propose to do to stop the mouths of the scandal mongers? Uh, Cheever and Putnam looked at the woman with mounting aversion. Uh, all their earlier doubts in her favor were being destroyed by her mockery, by her wicked uh, presence, by her wicked prescience? I don't know. Uh, Her present display of righteousness they found insufferable, and now, as if this were not enough, Martha gave way to undisguised blasphemy. Uh, I do not believe that there are witches, she said. She could say that they asked when 3 proved witches had already been taken to the parish. Yeah, because y'all killed them for no reason. Martha might have, with justice, replied that the witchhood of these 3 had by no means been proved legally. Tituba and her companions could not be held guilty until the trial had taken place and the jury found them so. But Martha, for all her intelligence, had no better acquaintance with uh, jurisprudence than any other Puritan. She too confessed examination with trial. Well, if they are, she said, still with that irritating smile. I could not blame the devil for making witches of them, for they are idle, slothful persons and minded nothing that was good. But what she demanded did such people have to do with her? Uh, but what she demanded did such people have to do with her? A professor of faith, a gospel woman, outward profession of faith could not save you. Woman, outward profession of faith cannot save you. Outraged, the visitors left her. That had been worse than they feared, and now they had no compunctions about her. The sooner the body of the church was cleared of this corrupt branch, the better. Why was she worse than Sarah Good, worse than Osborne, at least, though unrepentant? had not denied the reality of witchcraft. In all Salem village, they knew no one capable of such outright atheism. Um, on March 19th, a warrant was sworn out for Martha's arrest. Wow. That day, however, fell on a Saturday, and it was not until Monday that she could actually be taken. So it came about that she was able to astound meetings of the Sunday with a prejudiced display of her craft. Uh, Deodat Lawson, uh, Deodat Lawson, minister of Salem Village, after George Burroughs preached at both these meetings. He had come down from Boston to observe the plague that had been broken out of his former parish and to investigate the report that the girls had information that his wife and daughter did these 3 years had been done to death by sorcery. He reached the village early Saturday afternoon, put up at Ingersoll's ordinary, and at once began his investigations. Mary Walcott was there, and a witch was biting her. Lawson heard her shriek, and on her invitation, examined her wrist by candlelight. It was true; he could see the marks plainly. But Lawson was a curious man, and when he recorded his observation of the tooth marks in the notes, he began to take at once. He began to take at once. He took pains to insert the word apparently. Um, During the evening, he went to the personage for the consultation with parents. Once in the house, however, it was nearly impossible to do anything but look at Abigail, who was in full possession. He found the child running through the house, saying, "Wish, wish," and flapping her arms in an attempt to fly. He when he thought to settle down with Parrish, ignoring the child a while, there being a woman to tend her, and the fluttering and wishing had comparatively harmless types of diabolism. The child froze his attention upon herself by going into a dramatic and ominous bit of shadow play. A shape had entered the room. None but the child could see it, though everyone looked to where Abigail's round eyes were focused, and when the child called it by name, Lawson's heart misgave him, for this was not Tituba or Osborne, nor even Goody Corey, but a woman he had admired and even revealed for her charity, for her seeming charity. "Do you not see her? Why there she stands," shrilled the child. Uh, "Do you not see her? Why there she stands," shrilled the child, and now Lawson, really oxed, aghast, not at all inclined to make mental reservations involving the word apparently, saw the child strain to push an inevitable and dreadful object away from her. I won't! Oh, I won't!" yelled Abigail. I am sure is none of God's books, is the devil's books, for all I know. With her own eyes, with his own eyes, he saw a human soul in a very act of resisting the devil, or any way the devil's discipline. Heroic little girl, how she fought and how helpless they were to rescue her from the agonies with which the hellish shape punished her resistance. How marvelous was God's providence to a little child it was given to fight for them all, beating off the power of darkness with her own fist. Presently, Abigail lost all control of her actions. She ran into the fireplace, came out with firebrands, and hurling them about the house. Then she dashed back and tried to fly up the chimney. Uh, Lawson came hollow-eyed to the pupil next morning. So it says she tried to fly up the chimney. She tried to, or she did, resist whatever she saw, so that only she could see the dark entity. Uh, and it kind of says that Lawson's heart misgave him, because it kind of just says that he knows now. It's not Tituba or Osborne or even Goody Corey. Um, this is why. I mean, this whole thing is just horrible. It's really just horrible. Uh, he had been on his knees half the night, wrestling with the angel, imploring God's mercy and his blessing on this poor village, which the devil had cursed, imploring that God save harmless these little ones, these innocent children, who were the Commonwealth's sole bulwark against diabolism. Suffering little children, the Lord said, suffering little children, the Lord had said, how true it was now, that, and how clear that of such needed was the kingdom of heaven. Part of these prayer was answered, for Abigail came to meeting in the morning, holding fast to the hand of her Aunt Rosie, and cheerfully, after a sound night's sleep, she walked down the aisle with eyes downcast, ignoring with the modesty of the truly great looks of awe that her elders were casting her way. But when Lawson strode up to the pulpit, and standing there let his eyes rove over the congregation, he saw what appalled him. The witch Corey had also come to meeting, in full knowledge that on this the marrow she would stand here in ignominy, facing the hellish charge. The woman had come to church and taken her place among good Christians. That she should dare so much as an effort to all descendancy. The congregation could hardly keep his eyes off her. The afflicted girls were all but forgotten in the scandal of her temerity. For not long Martha could have come only for the express purpose of defying God before his very altar. Now, before the eyes of the congregation, she began to work on the children. Invisibility Of course, all that the naked eye could see was sturdy bulk of this woman, sitting upright and quiet as any decent body, but all the while her incorporeal essence, her shape, darted among the children, pinching and choking. The poor girls wailed so piously that Lawson could hardly get through his first prayer, and after the psalm was sung, Abigail was beside herself. Now stand up and name your text. There was authority in her clear voice. Every face in congregation uh, turned to gape at her. Um, Martha looked Martha alone looked straight ahead of her, and even now the woman had the effrontery to smile. The minister, looking tenderly down at Abigail, obeyed her. "It's a long text," sneered Abigail, or at least the devil in her sneered. Lawson entered his sermon, but the tricksy spirit released by Martha Corey would not let him preach in peace. He was hardly well launched when the spirit rather unexpectedly descended upon the hitherto inconspicuous young Martha, Miss Gertrude Pope. Now there's enough of that. Rapped out the young woman to the person. Not even the Quakers had often dared make more disturbance in meeting. They and in meeting, and they had hanged for it. Yet not a hand was laid on the children and and the Mothron. The minister looked at them sorrowfully and went on as best he could. The young people knew not what they did. One could only pray. Perhaps there would be peace at the afternoon service if Martha did not come. But Martha did come. There was indeed no way of keeping her out. The warrant had not been served, and it could not be served on the Sabbath until it was. Whatever the mockery of the situation, Martha had as good a right as anyone to take her place in meeting, unless to reason with the woman or appeal to what a witch might have of a sense of propriety. Martha affected to believe that she was doing God in Salem Village a service by her presence here. I will open up the eyes of the magistrates and the ministers. The woman had retorted when they reminded her that she must return to this place tomorrow to stand before her accuser. So Witch Corey returned and sat on her bench, square set and immovably as a rock, ignoring the children, ignoring the sidelong glances of her neighbors. But she was paid for it this time. She was publicly exposed. "Look!" rang out the voice of Abigail suddenly. "There sits Goody Corey on a beam, suckling a yellow bird betwixt her fingers." Eyes shifted from the massive substance of Goody Corey on her bench to the beam over her. Shape sat swinging its stouts. As was to be expected, most people saw nothing more incriminating than a cobweb. The sharp the sharp eyes of Anne Putnam picked her up. However, the songbird flutter was the beam to the minister's hat hanging on its peg in the pulpit. She whispered this observation to her neighbors and jumped up to make the announcement public. She was pulled down and hushed. A craving for order was beginning to assert itself even among the Putnams. These were subtle. Uh, these are subtle, aware of the good sentiments of people who blamed the disorder less on Goody Corey than on the girls and their parents. In any case, not even inspired Abigail interrupted the parson thereafter. Okay. Alright, I'm going to try to finish this chapter. Alright. After such a prelude of the good people of Salem Village made sure of their seats early Monday morning, and when at noon the magistrate arrived from town accompanied by Nicholas Noyes, the house was full. The officials took their places and summoned the defendant, Martha, escorted by the constables, came down the aisles and mounted to the bar. There was nothing cowed about this woman. She turned to the magistrates confidently, as if she had actually looked forward to this opportunity of expressing herself about current events. She had every intention of taking the offensive in this examination, and this end, and to this end, after the Reverend Nicholas Noyes had opened the meeting with a very pertinent and pathetic prayer, Martha asked leave. Martha asked leave. What? Martha asked leave to pray too. Uh, as every minister knows, a prayer is a superb device for airing an opinion. The magistrate's head did not fall into the trap. Uh, Curtly, they told her that they were here not to hear her prayer, but to examine her. And Hathorne went at once to the point. He did not. The magistrates did not fall into the trap. Curtly, they told her that they were here not to hear her pray, but to examine her. And Hawthorne went at once to the point. He did not even ask for her plea. With the girls yelping on the front benches, Sisters a query of superfluous. He simply asked her why she afflicted them. I don't afflict them, said Martha. Who doth? I don't know. How should I know? She added, her self righteous asserting itself that they accused her uh, of would be uh sorry, let me read that. She added her self righteous asserting itself that what they accused her of would be impossible to her. I'm a gospel woman. She's a gospel witch, screamed out one of the children. All the pack took up to cry, "Gospel witch, gospel witch." And there was pandemonium and such ear-splitting racket that Hawthorne waited for to quiet down. Presently, out of the uh, tumult came the clear voice of little Anne Putnam testifying. She herself, at her father's house, had seen Goody Corey in another, praying to the devil. That was uh, where Goody Corey directed her prayers. It's, I don't know. I really don't know. The girls had fallen quiet to listen. In this rare lull, the magistrates turned to Martha, and Martha to the magistrates. "Nay," she said to them, we must not believe these distracted children." The dry reasonableness of the remark affronted Hathorn. Distracted children, he exclaimed, who then distracted them. Let anyone who had eyes look and see. Indeed, the answer was only too plain. Even while Martha proclaimed her innocence, her devils had not been able to resist deceiving new tortures for the girls. Wow. What Martha did now, they all did. If she shifted her feet, they did so too, and fell to stomping with such force as to rock the meeting house. If she bit her lips, they yelled that she had bitten theirs, and began running up to the magistrates to show how they bled. "What's the harm in it?" Martha asked, when they ordered her to stop biting her lips. So this was their way of torturing um, who they thought was a witch, was to copy them, uh, play a very deadly game of Simon Says. Um, Only Simon was not there. Only the magistrates were there. And to copy every move that this woman did and say, "We don't have control over it. She's a witch. We can't do anything." And so to say that even her presence, being around the rest of that church, was was her putting witchcraft out there to control the church and to control people of the village. Um, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, they just did it because, I don't know, because they could uh tell her that she uh cursed them somehow or afflicted them somehow because they ran up to the magistrates to show them how they bled because they wanted to copy her and incriminate her for being a witch. Even though she said that she was a woman of the church, a gospel woman. Um, Worried, the prisoners leaned against the magistrate's seat. The motion set such a turning pain for Miss Pope's bows that she flung her muff at Martha, and her shoe, missing through her shoe, and fetched out her a clot on the side of the head. Wait, who do you, I'm sorry. The motion sent such a tearing pain through Miss Pope's bowels that she flung her muff at Marta, missing through her shoe, and fetched her a clot on the side of the head. The girl's eyes and ears opened, and they saw and heard that which the rest of the assembly shudder to think about. One saw the black man whispering in the ear of Martha. The ears of others picked up the throb of the spectral drum, and when they looked out the window, they saw the witches of Essex County assembling to take their unblessed sacrament before the very meeting house. "Don't you hear the drum beat?" cried one. "Why don't you go, gospel witch? Why don't you go too?" Good people sat shivering in the audience, drawing, hardly daring to let their eyes shift to the windows. The situation was getting frightful past bearing. Though Tituba had referred to witches' Sabbaths, she had been vague about the place. Who could have dreamed it would be here and now that the devil had grown so bold that he could marshal his own before the the consecrated house at the exact moment when the focus of light were assembled within to give him battle. Yet what was really appalling was the question of who might be out there on the church lawn serving the devil. The witch hunt had seemed simple enough when it was a question to the uh, derelicts who had first appeared. Now the problem was assuming incalculable dimensions. No disagree of respectability could be proof against suspicion. Now look at Martha Corey. There on the platform, outspoken as she was, she had not been linked. Yet until now, few had connected her with witchcraft. Look at the one whom Anne Putnam had named in court today, one outwardly so gentle that it seemed impossible she could be guilty. Perhaps they had heard Anne wrong. Perhaps Anne herself had mistaken the shape. Yet witches rioted on the lawns outside the meeting house. They were witches still unnamed and untaken. Uh, God, God guide these magistrates to find them. The magistrates uh, propounded to Martha some questions out of the uh, the the catechism. Her answer about the good head struck the attentive Lawson as odd, but a scrupulous man, he remarked afterward, there was no great thing to be gained from it. Martha Grade, uh, blundering husband. Ugh. Uh, Martha's great blundering husband, Gillis, was called to testify. He faced the judges and unwanted in unwanted humility. Within the year, he had received into Noyes Church in Salem town, and he took his devotion seriously. Besides, ever since that business of Martha hiding his saddle to keep him from the examinations, he was inclined to think that there was something in what people said of her. He answered Hathorne carefully, trying his clumsy best to report the exact truth of what he knew of Martha. The truth, the truth, however, was unimpressive, unconvincing, even in the setting like this. It boiled down to was Gillis found was that Gillis what it boiled down to was that Gillis found it hard to pray when Martha was about, and was in turn bothered by her own fluency in prayer. Once he had formed her late night kneeling, mysteriously silent on the on the hearth, and could make nothing of it. Neither, when he reported the incident, could the magistrates. Rather contemptuously, they dismissed him, and a rustle of speculation went over the house. What was the old man concealing? Might not his very stupidly be a mask for something else? You can't prove me a witch, cried Martha before she was laid away to prison to be held for trial. But such a statement was beside the point. What she couldn't prove was that no one at all accused of such a thing could prove that she wasn't. Martha Corey had hardly time to acquaint herself with her new surroundings and the questionable society of good Osborne and Tituba before she was joined by uncommonly small witch Dorcas Good, 5-year-old daughter of the pipe-smoking Sarah. Her shape, it seemed, had been running about the country like a little mad dog, biting the girls in return for what they had done to her mother. So a warrant was duly sworn. The child, a hale and well-looking girl, fetched in Benjamin Putnam by Constable Braybrook, and off to prison she went. She would not come out of it eventually. 5-year-old witches were not hanged anyway, not in Massachusetts, but she could not come out. Hale and well looking, or ever be so again. Wow. Alright, that's the end of chapter 5. This book is crazy. I mean, the things they put people through. Torture they put people through. Okay.